Hello, welcome back to the Insidious Addiction, People Addiction. And it comes from How to Break Your Addiction to a Person by Howard L. Halpern. We are now talking about being valuable versus worthless. So, a lot of people feel like they are more valuable when they have an attachment to another person. It gives them a boost in their self esteem, their self worth, makes them feel like they're not as worthwhile if they don't have that attachment. One woman said, "It makes me angry that my self worth feels dependent on being involved with some Joe jerk or Jane jerk," but it is. And it's not a feeling particular to women, some men feel that way too. If you feel like this is true for you, like you have to have that attachment, remember that it still has its origins in that attachment hunger level. The feeling that you have this omnipotence, this oneness with this other person, can be transferred to somebody else. So when you had that oneness with your mom or your dad or your caregiver, and now you're meeting a guy or a gal that just trips your trigger, as I always say. They just bring out what you think is the best in you and they just make you feel so good. Now you've shared that omnipotence feeling with this significant other. Now, a trial lawyer who was very much in love with his wife of many years said a long time ago, "I started this ritual. I started standing to question a particularly important witness in the trial. Or I stood to make a summation of a trial. And I would picture holding my wife very close, her arms around my neck, and we were kissing. And it's like charging my batteries. I get up feeling like Clarence Darrow. I guess he was some sort of famous court person or something. I don't really know who it is. But at any rate, remembering his wife and him kissing brought about that same attachment feeling that he had, even though he wasn't with her in the courtroom." And we know from attachment theory that this came from the strength that he felt in the closeness with his mother. But seeing another person as a source of this power has a lot of problems with it, especially when it keeps you stuck in an unhealthy relationship. So here's a story about a man who was in such a relationship. Their marriage had been in deep trouble for months. It looked like it would end. Louise's attacks on me and her withdrawal from me made me feel like dirt, like I had no redeeming qualities whatsoever. I began to believe every critical judgment she made about me. I knew I should get out. Then we had one of those sporadic breakthroughs. We finally connected again. We were intimate Sunday morning for the first time in months, and that afternoon I went out to do some repairs on the driveway. I had been putting it off for a long time. I had felt too weak to handle the 50-pound bags of gravel that sat in the garage, but now I could toss them around as if they were down pillows. It's that supercharged feeling when you're with that person that just, is your world. And that's okay if the relationship's going to last, but what about if that relationship is hazardous to your health, emotionally, psychologically, and socially, and it needs to end? Similarly, a young woman who did not feel particularly valued or enjoyed as a child, except when she got good grades, so performance anxiety, she said, "I knew that Harry and I had to break it off. There was no way he'd leave his wife and kids. And on this particular Monday, which would have been the anniversary of our meeting, I was feeling so worthless that I even said 'excuse me' to a waiter who spilled coffee on me. Then I got home and there was a letter from Harry telling me that though we can't make a life together, he will always love me more than anyone. And even though nothing had changed objectively, my feelings about myself changed instantly. I looked into the mirror and I saw a very beautiful woman." So she felt that even though they couldn't be together forever, he would love her forever. I know how this feels. I was the mistress. I've told this story before about Don, who I technically left my husband, not technically for him. He was just like a side thing that kind of got me finally to say, I'm done with being abused. I'm going to leave. It wasn't like I left my husband for him, because the him didn't stay. He was still married when that all happened, and we were not involved in that way. But the point is, I know how she felt. Anytime Don would tell me, oh, you don't deserve to be treated like that. I'm going to take you out and treat you like a lady. I'm going to hold the door for you. I'm going to buy your meal. I'm going to gaze lovingly into your eyes. That's how a man treats a woman. When I looked into the mirror, I was like, I don't look that bad. Everything that my current husband's saying to me, it's not true. I'm a good person. I'm a worthwhile person. I'm a smart lady. I'm a beautiful lady. I'm a beautiful woman. So I know what that felt like. Although the relationship with Don was not a healthy relationship. It was a relationship that I could never have because he was still married. He wasn't going to leave his wife for me, and I wasn't expecting him to. So you get that feeling of being enjoyed from someone who feels that way about you versus that person that rarely ever tells you that you're loved, and it just boosts your ego, but yet it puts you in a very impossible bind. So she further goes on to say, if it's important to me to feel enjoyed, then that's what I need and want. So I better look for someone who really enjoys me. But the thing is, I'm beginning to see that I have a lot on the ball, whether there's someone like that or not. I'm really strong. Louise didn't give me strength to toss that gravel. Oh, this is the guy, sorry. Or to run a successful business. I have to try to hold on to that truth. So what he's saying is, he realized that if he could feel that way with Louise, he could feel that way leaving Louise. Because it was inside him. It wasn't something someone else made him feel. And he did struggle to hold on to that truth by deepening his understanding of how he came to depend on an attachment to make him feel valuable. He journaled and found out who he was, and he realized that he could separate from her. But before that happened, Louise started sensing that he was pulling away and standing more on his own. She didn't like it. She could feel that he was no longer dependent on her for his self-esteem, and whether through fear for his leaving or because his new self-regard made him more attractive, she began to shift her response to him. He decided to stay, enjoyed being enjoyed more, but no longer feeling tied to her by his old need. So he stayed with Louise, but on a different level, not needing her to complete him. He felt the completeness within himself. So if you, out there listening to me babble on about this story in this book, if you're feeling like your feelings, your needs for security are coming from another person, if you feel like your worth is wrapped up in another relationship and it's making you unhappy, then it's helpful for you to explore the origins of your own hunger attachment and your feelings of insecurity, where those come from, and your poor self-esteem. The object of this is to discover that these shaping experiences no longer pertain as far as a realistic current definition of yourself. As one woman said, just because my parents didn't take me seriously doesn't mean I'm not to be taken seriously. And to determine whether you're choosing relationships and patterns of interaction that are repeating an old and futile drama. In other words, the aim of this self-exploration is to help you put the past in the past and the present in the present. This awareness may not be enough for you to take the step of breaking a bad relationship. It will still take personal courage, resolve, and often the help of friends as a resource of support, perspective, and affirmation of your worth as you move from insight to taking action to break your addictive tie. Now, I want to address somebody that wrote a comment to me regarding this book that I'm doing for all of y'all. They said, if you're such a therapist and you're such a life coach, why do you need to read from a book? I can't tell you how many times my own therapists, counselors, have actually pulled out books and read to me from them. There's no harm in reading from a book. There's no harm in sharing knowledge that helped you. This book, How to Break Your Addiction to a Person, is what literally set me free from my own people addictions years ago. Like I said many times, which is why you don't see me attaching to people and staying attached. Yes, I attract unhealthy people. There's no arguing that. But once I have those unhealthy relationships, if they remain unhealthy, I leave them. If there's hope for them, then I work towards that hope, and I expect the other person to as well, which you've seen in my marriage. Nobody is a flawless human being on this earth. Nobody comes without some kind of baggage or some kind of stressor, whether positive or negative. We all have things that we're working through, and hopefully this book will help you break free to your own independence and self-worth without relying on another human being to complete you. We'll see you on the next reading of this book when we talk about the peaks and valleys in these types of relationships. See you then. Thanks for watching.